On the Caribbean Sea, unusually still and moonless, the ocean seemed to be holding its breath. 4 cargo ships drifted quietly through the salty mist, outwardly no different from ordinary commercial vessels. But inside was a smuggling empire worth billions of dollars. Hundreds of drums of precursor chemicals were disguised under the label industrial fertilizer, enough to produce 190 tons of synthetic drugs, a volume capable of collapsing drug control systems in major cities around the world. What lay inside the containers? Contraband alone, or the black cash flow that feeds violence? The 4 blips on radar were actually 4 arteries of a transcontinental criminal body. Chende Aragua coordinated from Venezuela's coast, semi-militarizing logistics and masking it as legitimate trade. Where do you cut to stop the poisoned ships, cash, or communications? Choose a blow that paralyzes yet preserves the key evidence. Track encrypted signals, cross-match financial transactions, and cargo hold imagery. The picture sharpened by the minute as the logistics shell peeled away. Those behind it would surface. Was there a foreign hand at work? The cold numbers exposed the horror of the toxic flow enough to cripple multiple cities. Precursors mislabeled as fertilizer, container configurations engineered to evade inspection, potential yield into the hundreds of tons. Scuttle them now to halt the flow, or seize them to capture the entire supply chain record? Priority: both sever capability and preserve investigatory data. Hit the comms bay and control nodes. Avoid chain detonations. The transport artery snapped. When numbers translate into lives, the moral case for military action becomes clear. Share your view below. Inside a hidden compartment, reconnaissance found proof of a cash hoard worth hundreds of millions of dollars, neatly boxed. It didn't just run the network, it nourished corruption, bought weapons, and hired mercenaries. For intelligence services, striking the money is cutting the lifeblood, but behind it was a human story. Forced laborers, fishermen held in brutal conditions. This military action wasn't only about crushing smuggling, it was about rescuing human lives. From source debriefs, evidence of kidnapping and labor exploitation emerged in full. Human rights files became the basis for military action, making the decision to fire not only legal but ethical. Politics, however, boiled. Caracas denounced the strike as a sovereignty violation. Washington released intelligence documenting the entire smuggling chain, between the legal and humanitarian fronts. Every argument went on the scale. In the command center, legal teams worked alongside tacticians, validating each ground for action before the strike order cleared. Satellite imagery, transaction data, and navigation logs were fused into a complete dossier. Every detail showed this wasn't just smuggling, it was a global criminal structure with intertwined finance, arms, and human elements. To the commander, the choice wasn't war versus peace, it was action versus impending disaster. A red boundary line glowed on the tactical chart, 80 nautical miles off Curacao. The order with codename Clean Current went out at 3:15 a.m. Washington time, 3 simultaneous axes. From Puerto Rico, a loitering munitions UAV squadron launched. Underwater, 4 clandestine dive teams closed in. On the surface, USS Mason held support position, ready to bring CIWS online. Everyone knew a tiny error could turn a surgical strike into an international catastrophe. Before hour, the force shifted to full MCON. Teams checked weapons, UAVs spun up sensors. The countdown began. At minus 30 minutes, emissions went dark. The Caribbean fell silent. 10 minutes later, radar showed 4 steady targets, 1 peeling from formation. The encrypted signal matched the intel file. The internal net received a lock on target Alpha, divers at 500 yards. UAVs boxed the targets. Red frames burned on the control screens, everything set. On deck, silhouettes smoked in silence, unaware that US Navy radar had already locked them in. Overhead, reconnaissance UAVs flew in tactical formation. Beneath the surface, two SEAL teams approached with modern diving gear, preparing for a strike in the dark. This wasn't just an interdiction, it was a multi-layered operation across air, sea, and electronic domains, coordinated by the Navy, the DEA, and the Pentagon. The fire order went out terse and cold. On the displays, the first points of light streaked away in silence. Seconds later, the Caribbean sky erupted. The lead UAV speared the midship bay of Target 1, destroying the entire comm system. 3 more slammed into the cargo hold, the stern, and the heavy gun position. The sea thundered with chain blasts, red arcs sketched across the water. In the command center, heat signatures winked out one by one, enemy defenses erased. As smoke still veiled the sea, the assault teams breached. Beneath black water, they moved in a crescent. Pairs of divers touching hull in absolute quiet. Hydraulic cutters bit into steel, opening an entry. Firelight from outside sliced through seams like hell's beacons. 3 gunmen burst from an auxiliary control room, spraying wildly. The operators reacted in an eye blink. 3 shots. 3 bodies down. Clean, wordless. Over in under 10 seconds. On Target 3, the fight was harsher. More than 20 gunmen dug in around the engine room, turning containers into bastions. Team Bravo used shape charges to blow the door. The blast hurled a steel slab weighing hundreds of kilos. Stun grenades rolled in, light and thunder stripping the defenders' senses. When the smoke cleared, the operators owned the deck. To the north, UAVs kept hunting. Flagging heat traces of overboard jumpers, no one escaped the eye. 20 minutes after kickoff, all 4 smuggling vessels were neutralized. 2 burned to the waterline, 1 seized, 1 drifting without control. In the holds, the teams found hundreds of precursor drums, blue-painted cash boxes bearing Chende Aragua's mark, and crude weapons. Several hostages, Venezuelan and Colombian fishermen, were freed, exhausted but alive. Aboard the USS Mason, the commander reported, "Targets neutralized, no friendly casualties." A small cheer rose and quickly faded to silence. With smoke still curling over the sea, rescue crews kept fighting fires, salvaging and bagging evidence. Dawn broke, first light washing over 4 blackened hulks, flame and smoke folding into waves. The Caribbean shimmered like a shattered mirror, strewn with steel and ash. What remained was proof of a precise U.S. Navy punishment, a wordless message to every criminal outfit. In the open ocean, there is no safe haven. As the sun edged over the Caribbean horizon, pillars of black smoke still climbed from the wrecks like morning spires. First light glanced off the salt-wet helmets on the USS Mason's deck. No one celebrated. Everyone knew this victory wasn't measured only by ships sunk but by lives saved and a network severed. The sea seemed to hold still. Containers adrift, scorched drums bobbing, telling the story of a night's war. Below decks, the first report went to U.S. Southern Command. All 4 vessels destroyed or controlled. 28 suspects captured alive, including 3 senior Chende Aragua leaders. The seizures stunned. Nearly 200 tons of precursors, 6 tons of refined narcotics, and over $100 million in cash. Technicians also found 3 wooden crates of military communications gear in the cargo bay. Clear signs of links between the smuggling group and foreign armed actors. 13 hostages, mostly Venezuelan and Colombian fishermen, were transferred to rescue vessels. They trembled as they recounted days of forced labor at sea, no light, no food, no way out. "We thought we would die there," one said, voice raw with salt and fear. No one believed the light would come. According to intelligence files, the 4 ships belonged to Chende Aragua, a semi-militarized criminal network from Venezuela that runs transcontinental drug trafficking, human trafficking, and money laundering. Inside the holds was a cash stockpile worth hundreds of millions of dollars used for bribery, weapons purchases, and sustaining clandestine transport routes. Notably, The vessels also held forced laborers and kidnapped fishermen, turning this operation into a humanitarian rescue at sea. That afternoon, the Pentagon held a press conference. The Defense Department spokesman faced a thicket of cameras, affirming that Operation Clean Current was conducted under international law to block large-scale drug smuggling and to save lives. Our forces acted professionally, precisely, and without civilian casualties, he said. In Caracas, the tone was starkly different. The Venezuelan government condemned the strike as a sovereignty violation, arguing the attacks occurred less than 20 nautical miles from its exclusive economic zone. The foreign minister vowed to take the case to the United Nations. Two waves of narrative collided like political surf across the Caribbean. As diplomacy escalated, defense analysts worldwide weighed in. They noted that track data clearly showed the smuggling ships in international waters, and that evidence of narcotics trafficking had been verified by satellites and the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA. In Washington, strategists framed it as a hard signal. Any organization that touches the global drug money stream even mid-ocean will be hunted. On TV, satellite maps displayed the blast zones, overlaid with graphics of UAV paths and assault team positions. For the first time, viewers saw how technology, intelligence, and sea power interlaced into a seamless action net. Yet behind the victory lay a larger legal question. International experts argued that Clean Current expands the notion of active maritime self-defense, allowing navies to act on intelligence evidence rather than wait for conventional warrants. It marks a shift from reaction to prevention, a new doctrine shaping how great powers confront cross-border crime. On social media, images of four smoking wrecks off the Caribbean coast spread at speed, becoming an emblem of America's steel hammer at sea. Supporters called it justice. Critics called it a new kind of Cold War. The aftershocks traveled farther than the waves. Nations in the region began auditing sea lanes, tightening inspections on suspicious containers. Headlines blared, "Caribbean, the new front line in the drug war." But in a small room aboard the USS Mason, under the soft blink of radar, sailors kept their watch. They didn't think of themselves as heroes. They only knew that out there, millions of families slept in peace because some people stayed awake to keep the sea quiet. Sometimes, the price of peace is stepping straight into the storm. The Caribbean gradually calmed. Waves tapped the hull, carrying the scent of smoke and salt. Charred steel fragments still drifted, the remnants of a criminal world just drowned. But a final question lingered. If the battlefield now lies between horizons, is the world edging toward an era where any waters can become a firing line? Far off, the sun flashed on the waves like a mirror, glittering, indifferent. A new world is taking shape, where justice has no borders. On deck, a young sailor stood silent, watching the black smoke unravel into the wind. He said nothing, just tightened his salt-wet gloves. Every successful operation wasn't triumph. It was one more sleepless night, one more brush with death, for a slightly quieter world. The Caribbean story isn't merely a military win, it's a warning. Behind every ton of seized narcotics are shattered families and ruined lives. Stay to the end of the video to uncover the entirety of Operation Clean Current, a strike from the shadows on the Caribbean Sea. We'll break down how the U.S. Navy, the DEA, and SEAL Special Operations coordinated to dismantle this smuggling network, a campaign as surgically precise as it was profoundly humanitarian. Subscriber and ring the bell, because in the ocean's darkness, silence is sometimes the sound of justice. True strength isn't just firepower, it's discipline, ethics, and the resolve of people who choose the right side. If war must erupt, it should be only to protect peace. And peace is sometimes kept by those who walk into the most dangerous places so no one else has to. They are driven not by hatred, but by faith in justice. If you believe in the power of reason, courage, and truth, stand with us. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this video so more people see that behind every operation lies a lesson about humanity, courage, and the value of a world without crime. 4 smuggling ships crept through the Caribbean night, and then became 4 flares on the ocean. A lightning strike that changed the balance. The sea lay flat, moonless, salt wind clinging to rusted steel and sealed containers. One beat too slow, and the deadly cargo would have flooded the streets. Warship radar locked the targets, sensor suites confirmed identities, and command authority shifted to ready status. Every tactical link tightened. The silence before the storm shattered. Whoever controls the night controls tomorrow. What do you think the real cause was? Comment below. The dark sky was suddenly slashed by the low glide of UAV flight paths, a herald of a rare pursuit. At low altitude, their routes were blades of light. Below bubbleless, combat divers closed in on the targets in absolute silence. Strike early to sever the artery, or shadow them to map a larger chain? Aboard the USS Mason, the Combat Information Center activated formation recognition algorithms and delegated fires. Air, surface, and subsurface moved in second-by-second sync. The smugglers hadn't yet realized what was happening. Why did the US choose this moment, and what secrets hid in those holds? The order could ignite a new legal precedent on the high seas. 4 targets. 3 held a parallel line. 1 split south. Fused data showed escalation risk if the convoy slipped away. Strike while they were still beyond territorial waters. Or wait to formalize a capture at the cost of lives and evidence? The rules of engagement were reviewed line by line, with hostages prioritized. The approval chain snapped shut like a single cut. The enemy's escape lanes narrowed.